It's a feeling we've been chasing since coronavirus first entered our lives, a word that may never feel the way it once did ever again. But it's something we may be starting to experience once more. Normal.
I mean, we're all itching to get back out there.
Each person's definition of the word may be different these days.
We are normalizing mental health when we're beginning to talk about things.
But this week, we'll show you what a return to normal is looking like across the country. This is The Race. Welcome to The Race. I'm Chris Stewart. In some parts of this country, sports just mean more, and St. Louis is one of those places. So last year, when fans had to stay home, there was a hole in this community. But now that hole is being filled with the kind of experience you can only get in person.
I've loved the Cardinals since I was a kid.
I bleed blue, I'm a true Blues fan, and they're the best.
I like going to the games with my grandpa.
Our lives can be shaped by what we love.
They mean everything to me, besides, of course, my family and all that. They're like number one in my life.
You may know how hard it's been to live so distant from the field, the ice, the experience.
You can't get the same vibe at home.
But in many places across America, you can start to feel that love again, in person.
One and show that take care of business.
Few know the power of a crowd more than Chris Kerber. He's been the radio voice of the St. Louis Blues for more than 2 decades.
Sports teams represent a city, they represent a fan base, they represent a region. They bring positivity.
The city of St. Louis let the Blues start with around 1,400 fans in the arena in February. For this game, the numbers increased to around 4,000, still less than a quarter full. Most cities' health departments have followed the same framework, limiting the number of fans even for outdoor games. But in some places, like Georgia, Major League Baseball's Atlanta Braves are playing outside to a packed stadium of fans. No capacity limits.
You can't worry about the health. You got to take care of your own house first.
The safety is important. The fans, when they come into the buildings, they want to feel safe. They tell you.
This season, masks have been required. In person, you can see some seats are zip-tied to keep pods of fans socially distant. All tickets are digital, food and drink orders cashless. Fans can also use an app to have an order brought to their seats so they don't have to stand in line. Do you feel from what you've seen that fans are following the guidelines that have been put in place?
We would not have been able to expand our capacity and bring more fans in if the fans didn't comply with the orders and understand.
Sports still feel different in 2021. The St. Louis Cardinals have also limited fans this season and put COVID measures in place.
The number one thing is vaccinations. As those go up, and we just continue to encourage people to get their vaccinations so we can return to normal.
We love being here and being apart and seeing everything.
It's absolutely amazing.
But being so close to normal can only increase the desire for a full return.
I can't wait till we get back to full capacity and the boards are rocking again.
As things begin to return to normal, some people are nervous about going back to the way things were before the virus. Alexa Liacko introduces us to a man who is using his struggle to inspire others.
At first, quarantine didn't faze Corey Knapp.
I thought I was doing okay not seeing anyone.
Adjusting to pandemic life meant working remotely and social distancing.
We were very strict and decided early on we're going to be really careful.
But instead of finding that new normal, Corey found himself feeling overwhelmed.
I was scrolling through Twitter a lot, reading a ton of news, trying to follow everything, feeling like I kind of had to follow everything.
All that stress left Corey with a disturbing thought.
And it was kind of a really gloomy, dreary day. Looking out the door for that split second, I thought of the movie Dead Poet Society. And my mind flashed to the scene where the kid toward the end of the movie kills himself. And I was like, dang, I went back to bed and I was like, dang, what if I did that?
The thought paralyzed him.
I was laying in bed and got really warm, but also really cold at the same time. Heart was racing.
He didn't realize he just had a panic attack until those thoughts came back a few days later.
And just kind of had this vision of me hanging dead on one of the hooks in the garage, on the bike racks, and that really freaked me out.
Especially when he considered his family.
Man, if I did that to myself, I would be dead, but how would my mom cope with that? And so that was really kind of two things at the same time that really broke me.
He knew he needed to reach out for help.
Therapy has been incredible for me.
Corey was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, something he may not have learned without living through COVID-19. And he's not alone.
The pandemic set off an alarm in people's brain.
Counselor and life coach Dr. Ikaranda Smith says in the last year, the number of clients she treats has tripled. She says the pandemic was a trigger for mental illness of all kinds.
You know, as a nation, I think that we didn't know that we were grieving life as we knew it. And so that was the first thing we had to acknowledge, that this is grief, this is sadness, this is a new normal.
Now, even as the country is reopening and life seems like it's going back to normal, those feelings of uneasiness aren't going away.
Re-entry anxiety is real.
For many, it will surface when we see crowds or think about life without masks.
It's a mix of cautious optimism with not wanting to do too much too soon.
And so you don't want to exasperate that by making them feel uncomfortable about doing something that they're really not prepared to do.
Corey feels that pressure of wanting to get his old life back, but he isn't ready just yet.
I haven't eaten inside a restaurant since March. I'd love to go to a Braves game, but I love my safety more.
Through therapy, he's learned to embrace the journey to normalcy, quieting those anxious, harmful thoughts as much as he can.
They're still there, and it's certainly scary at times, and then there's times where they come in and I'm able to just completely ignore them and brush them off.
He's just hoping his struggle, when he posted about publicly on social media, will encourage someone else feeling the same way to ask for help.
There's no shame in it, there's no fear in it.
There's always a silver lining. We are normalizing mental health when we're beginning to talk about things that we didn't talk about before.
A conversation we could all use to help getting back to life as we knew it feel more like it should. For The Race, I'm Alexa Liacko.
Another big part of the discussion right now when it comes to mental health is returning to work. 2/3 of workers say they've experienced mental health challenges since the pandemic began. And it means many people could return to the workplace a different person than when they left. One expert told us it's the result of something called post-traumatic growth.
We've gone through not only the pandemic, but civil unrest, political upheaval. When you go through an adverse situation that depletes all of your resilience, you go through a process that helps you get to a higher level of functioning. And that's what post-traumatic growth is. You're not better, you're different.
Christina Bars helps organizations achieve business goals while fostering a happy, engaged workforce. She says people who have experienced post-traumatic growth will often have a greater sense of who they are, with new priorities and a renewed sense of life purpose. She says employers who don't plan for the change risk having a toxic work environment among employees.
They'll internalize it and disengage from the organization and from their work. And when people do that, when they disengage, you're going to see a reduction in productivity and efficiency. You want to create that healthy and safe environment. Post-traumatic growth is a really positive thing.
The nonprofit Business Group on Health predicts large companies will make employee mental and emotional health a main point of focus in 2021. Everyone's version of post-pandemic normalcy will look different. Next, you'll meet medical workers who say a typical day now is much different than it used to be. And we're on campus to see how a growing number of colleges plan to go back to in-person learning in the fall. You're watching The Race.